is the Business of Reselling podcast. I'm your host, Jessica Oman. Hey, everyone, and welcome to the Business of Reselling episode 63. We're on episode 63. Hey, I've been consistent the last few weeks. I took a little break over Christmas, but I think I've been doing pretty well on getting these episodes out every 2 weeks for you. And thank you for the kick in the pants because a couple people have given me one and it means a lot. Appreciate a shout out I got recently in a Poshmark seller group. I've had somebody recommend my podcast and say that they never miss an episode. And I think that's so amazing. Thank you so much for listening. That really means a lot. I am still going to continue to try to grow this audience, grow the podcast this year. So appreciate you listening, subscribing, and please share it with a reseller friend if you know somebody who is interested. Today, I'm going to do an episode about Poshmark because I haven't actually done one before. And so I just thought, I should do it because we've been using Poshmark now for a few years, and I talk primarily about eBay on the podcast and all of my strategies for selling there and various frustrations and so forth. But Poshmark is a growing revenue stream for us, and it's about time that I dedicated an episode to how we use it. I'll get to that in a second. Now, just an update on the business. January has been an interesting month. The last part of January was extremely slow volume-wise, and looks like February has started off about the same. I usually find the first couple of weeks of January are pretty good. Like people spend their Christmas money and stuff, and they're still sort of in that holiday mode. And then in the third week of January, it tends to tank. Same this year. But interestingly, we have been selling these like bigger ticket items almost every day, getting like a $300 to $800 sale. That's kind of just carrying the day, which has been pretty amazing. I mean, last week we sold like a signed Salvador Dali print that we picked up from a clear out that we did a couple of years ago. That was almost $800. We sold a Star Wars. What is it called? The Death Star. Oh gosh, I can't remember. It's some sort of play set involving the Death Star. Over $500 for that. Selling some big lots of comic books. So that's been great. Just kind of like to keep things going because we're not moving a whole lot of volume out of the store right now. But all of that actually put us over our projected January sales by 10%. That's pretty cool. So it makes me feel good about the fact that silver just crashed 30% on Friday and we were about to sell it. What can you do? It's okay. That's why you don't try to time the market. Just a word of advice. And also just a note before I get into today's content, I'm starting to add more referral links and affiliate links down in the show notes. I only refer services and products that I genuinely think are going to help you and only things that I also use. I may receive small rewards for you using these links, but you will always get a bonus or a gift out of it too. I just wanted to just kind of disclose that I've started to do that. Since I don't use Patreon, I don't use Buy Me a Coffee to support this podcast because I don't believe in taking pocket change from other resellers. I just think it's kind of like a grungy thing to do. But this is a way that I can begin to monetize the podcast a little bit, compensate my time just a bit, and also benefit listeners and give you some value. So thanks in advance for checking out the affiliate links in the show notes, and I will occasionally refer to those products and services in the podcast. And speaking of the podcast, please make sure you are subscribed to the YouTube channel at youtube.com/@Storagewarrior podcast. And you'll get additional content there, as well as the regular bi-weekly episodes. Okay. So here we go. I had never done an episode about Poshmark, like I mentioned, since most of our sales are still on eBay, but the percentage of our sales that are on eBay is dropping, while the percentage of our sales on other platforms, including Poshmark, is growing. It's becoming definitely a more important part of the business. And I know that I have listeners who are Poshmark sellers. So I think that this is long overdue. So I'm just going to talk about how we're using the platform, some of the pros and cons that I see of using it, and just a little bit of our strategy for 2026 as we are actively trying to grow our revenue on that platform. So I started using Poshmark actually around 2019. I think this was like when it first came to Canada. We had an employee who wanted to try it out, and we had a few high-end items, like, I think we had a pair of, like, Gucci shoes, and then we had something Prada, um, and we were like, "Poshmark, it's posh. Yes, let's do posh things on Poshmark." And so that's what we did. I think we put, like, 5 items up on Poshmark and sold about 4 of them over a few months, and I thought, "Wow, this is a great platform for all this high-end stuff." Um, and then I just gave it up because I thought, "Oh, Poshmark is for posh things, and I don't get a lot of that stuff, so this isn't the place for me to sell." I don't know, the logic didn't make sense, but I picked it up again in 2022. So why did I return to Poshmark in 2022? We were finding that as the COVID times kind of shifted and people got back to normal lives, eBay started to slow down a bit. If you were reselling in 2020 and 2021, you know that was gangbusters. It was some of the best years of reselling ever for a lot of people. But by 2022, things were kind of waning. And honestly, that's probably good for the world. But because eBay had started to slow down, we were looking to diversify, especially with clothing that wasn't selling on eBay. So instead of using Posh for Posh things, I reframed Poshmark as like a clearinghouse kind of for my cheaper, stale inventory and started just like cross listing stuff from eBay over there. So I wasn't even really putting any new listings up, just cross listing old inventory. And it was fine. I leaned into that a little bit, when I had spare time for a couple of years. And it only brought in a few $100 a month for the next 3 years, despite the fact that I kept adding listings on a semi regular basis to the platform, but I wouldn't say with consistency. Um, so just kinda did that, and I was like, "Well, it's just a little bit of extra," but it was such an insignificant part of our overall revenue that I never thought about a particular strategy for the platform. But in 2025, when the tariff situation became real, and, as I've said before on the podcast, previously 80% of our listings would go to the US, and all of a sudden it became much more challenging, not impossible, but more challenging to ship there. That became real, and thought, well, I want my business to appeal more to Canadians. And 2 ways that we could do that, well, 3 really. One was to move a lot of listings over to ebay.ca, which I kinda regret now, and you can go back and listen to the last 5 or 6 episodes of this podcast to hear about why. But that was one thing that we could do to appeal to Canadians. The second thing was our bid rush auctions, which we have had reasonable success with and will continue to do. And then the third thing was Poshmark, because Poshmark Canada is only selling to other Canadians. And so you don't have to worry about, country of origin and tariffs and customs and all the complicated shit. So I started leaning into Posh more heavily, especially going into summer and fall of last year. And I started posting quite a lot of our new stock clothing and accessories there, as well as continuing to cross list old inventory from eBay using cross list magic. That's the one I like to use. And those efforts doubled our Posh sales for 2025 over 2024. But most of that came in the last quarter of 2025 because that's when I was putting the most effort in. I do not know how many Poshmark listings I have. I think it's around 1,300 now. Still pales in comparison to eBay, which has 4,000. Um, but, I'm still trying to grow it. I don't know what's a good size closet on Poshmark. I'm not really sure, but anyway, I feel like the more stuff I add, the more stuff I sell, so I just keep doing it. Um, you're probably wondering if I use Promoted Closet. I'm a big proponent of promoted listings on eBay, despite the recent changes to the way that that policy works, which if you listen to episode 62, you can hear all my opinions on that. That's last episode. I have been invited to use Promoted Closet on Poshmark, but I have not accepted the invitation, and my reason for that is that our sales are still increasing on Poshmark. So January 2026, which just ended yesterday as I record this, was our best month ever on Poshmark by volume and almost by revenue on the platform. So I feel like I'm still sort of getting used to that and getting used to understanding how to interact with the platform. So I don't want to fold in promoted listings or any additional complications until revenue stops growing for us or until I feel like I've really mastered the platform. And I still think that's going to take some time. However, I do use a bot to share listings and send offers automatically. And I really like how that removes some of the effort from managing that platform. That leads well into what I love about Poshmark. It is so simple to list and ship. That's what they say in their ads on television. I also love that they advertise on television, which eBay does not. So it's very simple to make a listing, pretty fast, and I love that Poshmark produces that label for you, and all you have to do is print it. That's great, not having to figure out like what postage is going to cost at every location and having to compare postal carriers and. So I love that. We've had a handful of returns on Poshmark, not that many, but I find when I have them, they're very easy to deal with. Um, and because Poshmark pays for that return label, like, there's really no point in fighting a return on Poshmark. Just be like, "Okay, well, I disagree with you," and unless you have, like, a really obvious way to prove that the buyer is wrong, I mean, who cares? Just let them return it. Like, it's not a big deal. And so far, anyway, on Poshmark, there don't seem to be any like real consequences for having too many returns. Unlike eBay, that will ding you in a really unfair way for an extremely low number of returns compared to your overall sales, whereas Poshmark is much more lenient. So I also really like that. That makes it an excellent platform for entry level sellers. So people who are new to reselling, picking up Poshmark is one of the easiest ways to get started because of the simplicity of the listing and shipping process. I also love that I don't have to worry about collecting and remitting sales tax and don't have to worry about tariffs because it's only Canada. I also love their events. I love their seller engagement. I know people do complain about the customer service. I would say I would have the same complaint about every platform. So I'm really not going to go there with the customer service. I haven't had to have too many direct interactions with them. But I've been to their in-person events, and if you're lucky enough to live in a major city where they occasionally have events, you really should go. They're quite fun and interactive, a little bit different every time. They're very generous to sellers at those events with lots of giveaways and free food and drinks, and that makes me want to lean into the platform. M I feel like they're at least making an effort to connect with their sellers on some level, and that makes me wanna use the platform. It's just a great little symbiotic relationship. Unlike our eBay Entrepreneur of the Year experience, which was exactly the opposite of fun. And you can learn all about that in episode 46. The link is in the show notes. And if you haven't listened to it, do recommend. It's probably one of the best ones that I've done. Um, so I like Poshmark for all of those reasons, but there's a few things that I don't love about the platform. I don't love that you can't turn off offers from buyers. Um, for example, I don't want to have offers on sterling silver jewelry, especially with the price of silver right now. I just don't want to discount it. I'm not interested. Like, it's still way less than retail. Buy it or don't. But I can't turn that off, and so I'm constantly having to like decline, decline, decline offers on silver and then have somebody complain to me and then me having to say, well, it's $3.50 a gram today and this thing weighs 26 grams. And so you're not even offering me scrap value. Ugh. I just like, I wish I could just stop that by not having to look at offers. I find on Poshmark too, a lot of times pricing is sort of a race to the bottom. This is a bigger problem for like mall brands and Joe Fresh and kind of those lower end brands that sellers have a lot of. It's not as big of a problem for unique or high end items because there's not as much selection available on the platform. So people are a bit less price sensitive. But Posh can be real cheap. Oh man, it's tough sometimes. And it always seems to be about like who's got that thing for the lowest possible price. And that seems to be what a lot of buyers are trying to find is these crazy deals. So the opposite of Posh, as I used to think it was. But speaking of lowest price, I wish we could run sales or have a way to temporarily lower the price on an item and then have it return to the regular price like automagically. Like, yeah, like a sale. Like you can run that on eBay. You can discount whatever you want by whatever percentage you want for as long as you want. Well, I think it's 30 days and then you have to renew it or whatever. But you have a lot of control over that, and you don't have to manually go in and reset your prices all the time, and I just don't understand why Posh is so cumbersome in this way when they've made and effort to be so simple in a lot of other ways. I also wish that we could have the choice to sell internationally. So I wish that Poshmark US could be integrated, or there was a way to sell even overseas through Poshmark if we had the choice. Um, you might think I hate the fees. They're higher than eBay. They're 20%. eBay is like, we usually run 12.5 to 13.1, and it can be a little higher depending on promoted listings and other things like that. But so 20% is a lot, but actually the fees don't bother me on Poshmark. They're simple. They're straightforward, very easy to understand. You don't have complicated tax invoices to figure out. It's just like, here's your sales, subtract 20%, and you're done. Very simple. And so for that ease of use as well, for the platform being so simple and easy to use, I do feel that the 20% fees are worthwhile. It's still so much cheaper than like trying to run your own retail store. So, when people start complaining about platform fees, I'm like, yeah, go get a brick and mortar and then tell me how much money you have left at the end of the month. Because, anyway, this year I'm going to lean into Poshmark even harder than I did last fall. I pretty much list all of the new clothing and accessories inventory that we get on Poshmark now. The only time I don't is if I get a whole whack of really similar items. Um, like, for example, a couple months ago, we got like 20 men's leather belts. And because eBay has the sell similar feature, and I also have somebody hired to help me list on eBay, which I don't have on Poshmark. It was easier to just list all the belts there, and it was a very fast and easy process. But for the most part, clothing and accessories, shoes sell great on Poshmark, and all of that stuff is going on Poshmark now. I've stopped adding new sterling silver jewelry to Poshmark for reasons already mentioned. But yeah, clothing, accessories, hats. I've tried electronics and they've actually done okay. Vintage cameras have done okay on Poshmark. I don't do much in the way of kids stuff, so I can't really comment on that. And some like home decor and little trinkets and stuff like that. I think people pick those up on Poshmark and they like them. So I find that regular listing activity leads to higher sales. eBay is the same way. Like the more activity you're showing on the platform, I think the better visibility you get. I think Posh and eBay are pretty much the same that way. But Poshmark is so simple and easy to list. It's really easy to make a few new listings every single day on Poshmark, as long as I've got the photos. I do not do closet clear out. I think it's cumbersome and annoying. For reasons that I said a couple minutes ago, it's like running a sale and then having to like manually go back and change your price back to the regular price, and then you have to send like a message out to the likers and say, "Hey, it's closet clear out," and then half the time they click and they don't get the shipping discount, and then so you know what? Not even going to bother. Not doing it. I just let my bot send the offers, and that works just fine for me. We are taking more clothing inventory than we used to. It's plentiful at the places where we get most of our inventory. And we used to turn away most of it. Now we take quite a lot more. And that's an effort to grow our sales on Posh until they become a significant portion of our revenue. I don't know how to define significant exactly, but right now Poshmark is only about 10% of our total revenue, and I don't consider that significant. I don't know where I'll be at when I say it is significant. Maybe 25%? Yeah, that would feel pretty significant. But you know what? It seems to be growing every month. So I'm just going to keep going and maybe I can get up to 25%. That would be great. So that's my experience on Poshmark, a little bit of history of how I've used the platform and sort of my thoughts on growing our sales on the platform in the near future. I would love to hear from you because I have not talked about Poshmark with very many people at all. What do you like or dislike most about the platform? Leave your opinion in the comments or ask a question about Poshmark if you're considering using it. That's all for today. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast anywhere you get your podcasts on businessofreselling.com. And if you're not subscribed to the YouTube channel, just a reminder to go to youtube.com/@StorageWarrior podcast, hit like and subscribe and leave a comment and do all the fun, sharey things. And don't forget, we are always buying. Hook us up with a great pick in British Columbia and you will receive a gift. That's all for now. We'll see you next episode.